Welcome back to Stop Motion Stuff, where another cast of brave souls have put themselves up to be on the chopping block. But we also have some unknowing and maybe unwilling participants as well. Downfall's a meme, I guess. So the channel Military Studios has decided to make his own animated version called Plastic Downfall. Plastic Downfall isn't a bad little film. The animator shows lots of potential, but the film's main downfall has to be its editing and pacing. The film starts off with a build up to battle, with explosions and soldiers being called to arms, but then jarringly cuts to a solid minute of uninterrupted Hitler rant. Now, this is where the main problem lies. The audience has to sit through a minute of this.
Der Angriff steigert von Befehl! Wer schickt sie?
All it is the same few frames repeated over and over, occasionally cutting to a picture of a group of soldiers waiting outside. And I'm sorry to say this, but I got so bored watching it. The same frames playing over and over did little to capture my attention. The audio from Downfall didn't help much either because it was in German and the subtitles had a few spelling mistakes here and there which kind of threw me off. And just when I'm wishing for this boring segment to be over, it suddenly cuts back to the fast-paced battle. Now, I like the battle stuff and I didn't really like the Downfall stuff, so there is a way to improve this film actually. To hold on to the audience's attention, you need to cut between the battle and what's happening down the bunker. It helps build tension and keeps the pacing a bit more consistent if you do this. A wider variety of camera angles should have been used for the bunker scenes instead of this one wide shot focusing on all three of the characters. The film also would have benefited from a higher frame rate, which is going to be the running theme of this episode. In conclusion, Plastic Downfall isn't a bad film, it just needs an improved frame rate and pacing. Military Studios is on the right path, and I hope he has greater success in the future. Next up we have TAV28, who stated in the comment section that his videos are better than the ones I showed in the previous episode. Let's have a look then, shall we?
Come on everyone, let's go! Quick, hide!
He recommended I watch his video, The New Army. In terms of story, I was pretty confused. I think the main problem stems from the fact that he uses the same voice for every character and the music's a bit loud at points so I can't really hear what they're saying.
Tanks are attacking! Shoot them!
Okay, so I'm going to try and go over the plot. It starts with a group of green soldiers going on a rescue mission. They head off to what I assume is the Tan base and for some reason hide from a Tan patrol. I say for some reason because they just end up killing the patrol as soon as they step out from their hiding spot. So the Greens then rescue their prisoners and then take the Tan guards as prisoners, but they say that they're arresting them, which isn't a term that the military uses.
You're under arrest, Sans!
But that's fine, it's all fine and dandy at the moment. It's when they get back to the Green base that things start getting confusing. So the Tans attack the Green base, which was apparently caused by one of the prisoners leading the Tan army there.
You led the Tans here! Shoot them all!
The prisoners somehow leading the Tan army to the base isn't really explained. I mean, I guess he had that in mind when he was filming, but he just didn't give it enough detail. Okay, so the Green base is overrun by the Tan army, and some elements of the Green army escape. And up until this moment, it's been fairly disjointed, but now it gets really confusing. This guy shows up in a jeep. I assume he's like the Grey General or something, but he looks pretty tan to me. So I assume the Tans and the Greys are already in an alliance. But then he starts talking to the Tans about how he's in charge of them now, and if they don't follow his orders, he's going to shoot them. Which is weird because the Tans outnumber the Greys, but they don't seem to care at all. In fact, they don't say anything from this point onwards. They're like completely oblivious to what's happening. Then the Green Army shows up and starts complaining about how the Tans have been taken over by the Greys. So then they start shooting up some very passive grey soldiers. Then the Grey General decides to escape, and then the Greens and then the Tans, who have been doing nothing for this whole time, decide to take a pursuit. And this ends with the Greens and Tans being allies and getting rid of the Greys. Right. The film's plot is a bit of a mess because they don't really explain much and they have too much going on. I suggest simplifying the story a bit more, like maybe cut out the part where the Greens take the Tan prisoners, or you could cut out the part where the Greys take over the Tan army. And when you do that, you can just flesh out the story that you have already a bit more. However, TAV is showing improvement. I didn't realise this, but there's two versions of The New Army. The first version has him doing the gun sound effects with his mouth, and the second version has him actually using proper gun sound effects.
Tans are attacking! Shoot the Greens!
And here is the improved version.
Shoot the Greens!
It seems kinda odd to me why he didn't use gun effects in the first place, considering he has music and other sounds. But oh well. Looking back at his comment from the previous episode, his film The New Army probably doesn't have a good a story as Army Men the Nuke. And looking at his channel, he's also fallen into the horrible trap of rushing your films like NLC Studios. This Army Men vs Lego film he's done is only 30 seconds long, and it's also a combination of two videos, so the two parts are even shorter than that. This gives it absolutely no time to tell a story. In fact, the thing just suddenly ends during the battle, so I have no idea what's going on. Yeah, that's how it ends. Not to mention it also has the same problem of the voice acting, where I can't tell who's talking when.
Give us your base or we'll shoot you all. You can never have the base. Find them, we'll destroy it. What are we gonna do, Commander?
These videos and Plastic Downfall also have another factor that makes me very frustrated. An incredibly slow frame rate. Now, I have a rule for frame rate that unless it's done intentionally, like artistically or something like that, if it's below 10 frames per second, it shouldn't be posted on YouTube. For Army Men, I would say 12 frames per second is the frame rate you should aim to be filming at. The lowest you should aim for would be 9 frames per second when it comes to Army Men. For Lego films, the ideal frame rate is 15 frames per second. That's when things start looking good. Though 12 frames per second also is a pretty good choice. Lego stop motion tends to be more fluid than Army Men ones, so Army Men can get away with a lower frame rate, but Lego really can't. Anything lower than 10 or 9 feels like I'm watching like a series of photos. It doesn't feel like animation. It just feels choppy, it has no flow, and it doesn't really work out at all. I'm using Lego inspired 4488's channel as an example of this low frame rate, though he is showing huge signs of improvement in his latest videos, which is good to see. He's also improving his movement in his animations as well, which is a very important aspect. Now, the reason that Plastic Apocalypse can pull off 9 frames per second is because the animator Michael Ackerman uses very good movement with his characters. Fluid motion is just as important as the frame rate when it comes to creating a stop motion animation. It helps deliver the idea that these objects are living, breathing and moving like real things. The most common and best animation technique for this is called easing in and easing out. I'm not going to go into too much detail in this video, but the channel Fancy Pants has created an excellent video on how this works. I'll link it in the description below. A lack of fluid motion makes videos with a low frame rate pretty much unwatchable, but it can also apply to those videos with a higher frame rate. Let's take David from Solid Brick Studios as an example. He's pretty notorious for focusing on production quality rather than the actual content. It's pretty obvious in his videos that he spends more time trying to get the animation smooth than actually having any fluid motion. I mean, look at Finn's running in this frame. It doesn't look realistic at all. The movement of the characters is just so consistent. It's not how people move in real life. Things start off slow, then speed up, and then slow down again. And this is a shame, because he has the resources and the skill to be able to make a really good film. It's just as he doesn't put enough effort into the movement. So you can see it's not just films with a low frame rate that suffer from this, but ones with a higher frame rate as well. Well, that does it for this episode. Just like to thank those who put their films on the line for me to criticise, and I hope you all have a good day. See ya.